All right, Bulls and Bears, back with another dose. You're watching Bull, Boom, Bear, Bust, BX4 News. Let's go ahead and get right into it, folks. Shocking economic financial news to report to you today. If you've been paying attention, it may not be that shocking, but it is surprising a lot of people right now because a lot of people were very optimistic that the new administration was going to come in, make some changes, bring the cost of living down. Instead, we're seeing some pretty big fallout numbers, some data that's proving that this economy is in plunge territory, right? If we're not plunging yet, we're possibly on the verge here. U.S. retail sales just plunged to a very, very long-term low. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the prices that just went up again with the CPI. We're going to talk about restaurants facing severe pressure with customers saying no thank you on these prices, especially with eggs. And a lot of breakfast specialty restaurants. We'll talk about that here in a few minutes. They're seeing big trouble, right? So make sure you're subscribed. Let's go ahead and get right into it and get started right now. With this, Reuters, U.S. retail sales post the biggest drop in nearly 2 years, folks. 2 years. The optimistic people, they started getting optimistic in November. They went through the holiday season, of course, December. They went through January. They started pulling back. And I think people are realizing now that, hey, things are going to get a lot worse before they get better. People just thought that instantly everything was going to get cheaper, prices were going to go down. Everybody thought they were saved, right? Not everybody, but a lot of people thought they were going to be saved and that good times were here again, folks. Easy street. Well, not so easy, folks. The biggest drop in nearly 2 years. And what are we seeing out of this report here? Of course, they're blaming frigid temperatures, the wildfires and things like that. But folks, this was a drop nationwide, not just in the area where natural disasters occurred, but nationwide, folks. This was a big, big plunge. Now, initially, it was thought that with the announcement of the tariffs, that people would expect higher prices, so therefore they would go out and rush to buy things, trying to get in to buy things at a lower cost before the tariffs really hit or took effect. But we didn't see that, folks. Again, the biggest drop in nearly 2 years, right? So we're going to see how this plays out. But it's looking like consumers are either, one, maxed out or close to being maxed out, or two, they have the available credit, but they're just afraid to use it because they don't want to get further in debt because they see what is happening. So it could be a combination of both. And, of course, we're going to keep an eye on it here and see how it plays out. All right, let's move on to this, folks. California food banks facing hunger crisis with federal and state funding at risk. This is out of Cal Matters. And it's being reported here what we said exactly what was going to happen. Things just got worse. It's not even me saying that. I've said that many times. Things are going to get worse. Right here, folks. California's hunger crisis is just continuing to get worse. Not just continuing, it's getting worse. Food insecurity in California is rising with 22% of all households and 27% of households with children experiencing hunger. Think about that. 27% of households with children experiencing hunger. So people are missing meals, are going without meals. They're probably just buying some really cheap meals that are really bad for you. Probably shopping for dinner at the Dollar Tree or something like that. Canned goods maybe ramen noodles. But folks, it's not good when 1 in 4 households are experiencing hunger. Households with children, of course, that's California, where everything is a lot more expensive than most other states. And it continues here. Food banks are struggling to meet the sustained and heightened levels of demand. At the same time, the federal government's threatening sweeping funding freezes for anti-hunger programs and pushing for cuts to CalFresh, the biggest and most important anti-hunger program. Folks, what's going to happen when a lot of these programs are cut? We talked last report about how they're talking about deleting entire agencies, including programs like this, right? Both sides of the fence, I see opinions down in comments. People are kind of spread out or kind of opposite on this. Some people say cut everything. No one should get a free ride. I see that comment quite a lot. Other people say, hey, we have to because for the economy not to implode, you have to continue to prop things up. You have to continue to send out money to people that are not working, right? Imagine if you cut off all the programs, all the unemployment benefits, all the programs. And I'm not saying that's going to happen, but with the axe that's being taken right now to the programs, you have to wonder how much cutting is going to happen, how much elimination or deletion of these departments are going to happen, and what's going to happen if all the handouts stop, right? I don't think it's going to get that extreme. I couldn't imagine the ones in power right now. I couldn't imagine the current administration being that extreme, because they should know that this economy that's propped up on debt and spending and handouts, if you take that away, it's going to implode. It's going to implode on their watch, and everybody's going to point the finger at them. So I couldn't imagine them doing that. But folks, we're seeing some pretty surprising things unfold here. Again, 1 in 4 households with children here in California facing hunger, and maybe that's an inaccurate report. It's out of Cal Matters. Seems pretty crazy for that to be true, but hey, we said things are going to get worse, and maybe that is the case right now. All right, and we've seen many different reports that where food pantries and food programs are seeing record demand. Right, if everyone was doing good, if wages were great, if unemployment was so low, like we've been told for years now, the economy is firing on all cylinders, according to the talking heads out of the central bank. If all that were true, why are food banks continually reporting that they're seeing record demand and facing shortages of food, right? Doesn't add up, does it? So I think we know what's really happening, folks. Prices could go up. The current administration said tariffs might worsen inflation. Well, you think so, right? Of course, we talked about this. Inflation it's gonna be worse under the tariffs. Yes, could ultimately it get better down the road after jobs come back. If it works, jobs will come back, but it's not going to be instantly, folks. We could see a year, 2, 3, maybe even 4 before you start seeing the positive effects of tariffs. And think about it: when the tariffs are implemented, will companies want to come back to the U.S. and open up a new factory and start manufacturing in the U.S. when they know that in 4 years this could all be reversed? The tariffs will get stripped away. What if these companies are concerned about that and they don't bring jobs back to the U.S.? So what if we implement these tariffs, prices go up, and the jobs don't come back, folks? That could happen. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I think that's a very realistic possibility, and they're even admitting it right here. Mediaite, prices could go up. Tariffs might worsen inflation. Oh, you think so? We're going to find out, folks. And I think you're going to continue to see things get worse and more difficult. It doesn't mean that everybody's going to be starving. It just means that 1 in 4 households right now are food dependent in California. That could spread to the rest of the nation. A lot of times what happens here in California ends up being spread across all the other states. And look at home prices, right? What home prices were here in California just 7 or 8 years ago, now that's the median price in many different states. In fact, most of the states now are seeing median home prices above $350,000. So when you say what starts in California ends up spreading to the rest of the country, it's definitely happening with the cost of living. And if this continues, folks, I mean, what's going to happen to all these people, especially if they cut these programs? It's going to be very, very interesting to watch. All right, moving on here. The Guardian, no one wants to pay $25 for breakfast. U.S. restaurants are cracking under inflation. It's not just eggs. It's coffee, orange juice, bacon, making life especially hard for diners, bakeries, and brunch spots, folks. We're talking about this over in the UK out of the Guardian here. 90% of its dishes depend on eggs. That's a certain restaurant reporting that. A lot of these restaurants specialize in breakfast. Of course, Denny's, IHOP, all these pancake houses that we see that specialize in breakfast. Quote, our French toast, our pancake batters, our hollandaise sauce, obviously eggs and omelets, all becoming more expensive with $8 a dozen eggs. And again, consumers, the biggest drop in 2 years for spending now. We're starting to see the same thing at restaurants. It used to be restaurants were packed no matter what. Everybody wanted to just get that breakfast, leave an $8 or $10 tip. People are now pulling back, folks. And will the credit cards be enough to keep people spending? Well, it doesn't look like it, even though the banks have basically been given endless life support. Remember, the banks run an emergency program or have emergency powers ever since 2020. It no longer matters how many people default on their loans, how many people default on their credit cards, because now we have a zero reserve requirement again, ever since 2020, the banks have super lending powers or superpowers right now, which wasn't the case back in the 2008 financial crisis. So we're going to see how this plays out, folks. But with people still able to spend, they have the credit, but they're choosing not to spend here, starting to see a pullback. But this story continues. It's not just eggs that have gone up in price. Coffee is at a 47-year high, driven by climate disruptions in Brazil and Vietnam, the world's largest producers of coffee. The cost of frozen orange juice with what happened in Florida, that wiped out a lot of the orange crop here, has nearly doubled since 2020 due to citrus disease and climate shocks. Exactly what we told you was going to happen, folks. These things are getting more expensive. All right, but according to some people, prices are going to crash. Everything's going to come down. Everybody will have an easy time buying things. I'm just doom and gloom. But yet every episode, every report, we come in with evidence and data and stories pointing to the fact that we've been correct. Things are getting worse and things are getting harder for people. People are getting now pulled under the wheel. More people get pulled under the debt wheel now and are not able to keep up. All right, now let's rewind a little bit here and talk about a stock that I said was going to do really well. And it actually went better than I thought, a lot better than I thought. Remember, we talked about a lot of the stores closing, the upper end stores, some not so upper end, but some upper end stores like Macy's and others. And we said, well, those people that used to shop at Macy's, now they're going to go to Walmart. They're going ahead and downsizing or down shopping, in this case, to Walmart. Look what happened with Walmart stock, folks, over the past year. Let me bring up this chart here. 1 year ago, $56, folks. Recently, $104 per share, folks. Nearly doubling since we told you to go ahead and buy Walmart. I told you one of the stocks I wasn't going to get rid of is Walmart. Now, I have some other stocks that didn't do so well. I thought the Dollar Tree was going to do very well. The Dollar Tree didn't do good at all. The Dollar Tree crashed pretty much. The 99-cent store going out of business. That was another shocker to me. I don't have all the answers here. I'm not always right, but pretty accurate. And we made out pretty well on the Walmart stock. Plus, it pays dividends. I told you guys that was one stock, with what was happening with the cost of living, that more people were going to be going into Walmart, especially when you saw those upper end stores closing down, the Bed Bath & Beyonds, all the Macy's, of course, Sears, JCPenney's, not really upper end, but compared to Walmart, usually a little more expensive. And so Walmart's paid off very well. Right, now going out to a longer term view here, over 40 years now, 50-year chart here, Walmart, I would expect a pullback here pretty soon. Look at this nearly vertical rise in the stock over the past few years. Just since 2020, coming from the mid-30s, basically nearly tripling. Right, so I would expect the pullback here pretty soon. You can't expect this to continue. That would be amazing if it did, because I'm still holding the stock. I might start taking some of this off the table, actually, now that I'm looking at this chart here. So I'll keep you updated on that. When I sell off stock, I don't sell it all off, because then I'll regret if it keeps going up. So even if I sell off half the stock and then it keeps going up, you took your profits and then you still have some for the upside. But then if it doesn't go up, if it crashes, you still took profits because you took half off the table. So I'm thinking about doing that with the stock. I'll keep you updated on that with my trade here. All right, more shock here. Here's the bears. The bears are coming out, folks. This week's consumer price index release showed the largest single month increase in inflation since 2023. I wanted to come back to that. We talked about that here just recently. But look at all these things coming together, folks. Things are converging. And you have to wonder how much longer until the wheels start coming off this thing, right? A lot of people think it can go on forever because of the way the banks are able to just keep loaning out money now. But even with credit available, consumers are starting to get really, really concerned. And remember, the ones depending on food banks and food programs, typically they don't even have credit to depend on. It's mostly just those programs that are keeping those people basically alive. Here's something that could have major implications, folks. Look at this. The Times is reporting some tenants could only get 1 day notice for evictions under a new federal bill. Landlords around the United States would be allowed to give tenants just 3 days notice or less before evicting them. Imagine if that were to take place. So we went from eviction protections to where no one can get evicted, even if you didn't pay back in 2020, I think we all remember, to now you're going to get evicted in a matter of 1 to 2 to 3 days. That is crazy, folks. I can't even imagine that happening, that they would allow, and I'm talking about they, the ones in power right now, the current administration, that they would allow this to happen under their watch, this type of carnage, because they would get the blame. But we'll see how it plays out. It seems like maybe they're coming in with the wrecking ball on purpose. Maybe this is all staged to make people think, that what they're thinking is going to help the people is going to actually hurt a lot of people, and the economy could come crumbling down. We'll see. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but some very interesting things are being talked about. And let me know down in the comments. I could be completely wrong. Maybe things will get better very soon. And I hope so. I hope I'm wrong on a lot of the stuff here. All right, let's go into a chart here. Of course, Wolf Street. We like to look at the charts here out of Wolf Street. Household debt, folks. Let's go back to the 2005, 6, 7, 8 run up in debt, along with the housing bubble being inflated. What do we see after that? We saw debt drop, right? People got out of debt. Of course, a lot of it, people were filing bankruptcy. So even though people were losing jobs, debt declined. A lot of write-offs. Of course, the foreclosure crisis. A lot of the debt dropped because of that. But debt should drop when things get too expensive. That's what happened after the 2008 housing bubble and the financial crisis. Debt dropped. What are we seeing now? We're seeing debt steadily increase. Could that be because the banks are continuing to loan out money, which is just the opposite of what happened in 2008 as banks basically, for the most part, stopped the lending? And so, of course, you're going to see debt continue to climb if this continues. If this bank superpower situation continues, that's just going to continue to climb. And guess what? Prices are going to continue to climb because where there's debt and spending, there's higher and higher prices. So could this be an inflationary crisis that we're headed into? Will we not see any pullback in the cost of living? In fact, will inflation continue to accelerate? Just like we saw one of the biggest jumps in inflation here just recently, right? It's going to be very interesting, but that's what it's looking like so far. All right, out of the Daily Mail here. Daily Mail reporting Warren Buffett dumping more stocks. He's been dumping a lot of stocks over the past year or two. He sends shares tumbling as he sells stock in major healthcare companies. So he's been selling stocks, so not shocking to see this. And he didn't do a huge dump all at once. He's selling a chunk here, a chunk there, probably not wanting to sound any alarms or raise any red flags for people, not dumping it all in one huge dump, but making some pretty large sales. But people are noticing. I mean, people are watching him, and I think it's pretty obvious. I think he's trying to probably trying to fly under the radar and not send out too many warning signals to people. But we see what's going on, folks. He's bracing, and we don't know how much longer this thing could be propped up. If it is propped up, that's even worse. That means the cost of living is going to continue to skyrocket. Inflation is going to skyrocket. Food insecurity is going to keep getting worse. And we have all these layoffs now out of the federal employees. Brace for it, folks. I'm ready for this. You're ready for this because we're on top of the news. Please make sure you subscribe. Stay on top of this, and we're going to see how it all plays out. Grab your popcorn, and I think we'll be fine because we know what's happening. We know what to expect. We're still investing, and we know what's going on, folks. So I think we're going to be just fine. No doom and gloom here, but I think a lot of people that aren't aware of all the things that are happening could be seeing some pretty hard times, folks. So as always, thanks for being here. Big love. Keep stacking. Bye for now. Peace.